So you had written many short screenplays before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how many features you'd written, but was your process the same for all of them when you started out?
My process changed a bit as I was going. There was definitely a phase in my mid-20s where I brought out the corkboard and started doing like the cue cards, you know, on the board, like, all right, here's act one, here are the scenes in it, here's act two, etc. And I sort of fell away from that because what I found, and this is the process that I found on Broken Ceiling that really worked for me, was just going into a Word doc and making a very descriptive outline. I think the outline for the film was about 20 pages.
Oh, wow.
And I would write like 1 through 10, what's happening there, 11 through 20, and just break it sort of down, you know, because I needed to make sure that the audience was kept on their toes throughout the entire thing. So I needed to know, okay, like what's going on in this 10-minute sequence? What's going on in the next 20 minutes? How do I make that different from that? How do I make these twists? Like, where does this come into the thing? Like making it so that it's the most dramatic and enjoyable thing that it can be. But I found, and that's what I've used ever since, is like just making, almost pre-writing the movie, which is interesting. I'll just, you know, free type and write everything. Sometimes there's dialogue included, sometimes there's not, sometimes it's just descriptions. But if dialogue comes out, I'll write that down. It's a good starting point. But I just go through and, you know, they range from 10 to 20 to sometimes 30 pages based on the project or how long it is. But I really like writing out the movie in full so I can have that Word doc open as I'm writing the script and sort of like compare and go, okay, this is working, or changing things if I find that something doesn't work all of a sudden.
Do you write most of your projects with Will?
Yeah, most of them Will and I have written.
How did you meet Will?
We met at the internship at the production company that I worked for, and it was through our, you know, working together at the company that we forged this creative bond, and you know, it was early on, and we've just sort of continued since.
So when you, let's suppose you meet up, I don't know, for coffee, or I don't know how you discuss ideas, but how do you know that an idea is viable, that it's actually going to last through the whole process?
I think that if it excites me or excites us, that's a good starting point. Is it an idea that I haven't heard of before? Is it something that perhaps is topical, or perhaps is something that had been done before but has fallen out of fashion and could use a resurgence? You know, like it's thinking about, like, you know, keeping your finger on the pulse, what's going to be current now, but also, because film takes so long to get done, what's going to be still relevant like 3 years from now. And sometimes you can't gauge that and you can't know that. So in terms of viability for me, it's really boils down to like what I need to say, you know, like what is current in me. And what's interesting in that is that when I and we have followed that, we come up with things like No Touching that, you know, back in 2016 when that came out, this was before the Me Too movement, right? But it was sort of like in that realm of just seeing where the wind was blowing. Broken Ceiling, sort of same thing, like made that before like everybody else had in a way caught on and had become a bigger thing. So not to say that we're, you know, like predicting the future, but it's just seeing what's going on and sort of catching those early, you know, that early wind of something. And then if it resonates with us, going on and pushing it through, if it can excite us and hold our attention, because that's the thing. Sometimes you'll get an idea and it's good for the moment, and then you realize that you can't commit everything that you need to commit to it, and then it can sort of like fall away and put in the slush pile, you know, for a rainy day.
Where do you find your news? Like, you're listening to NPR? Where are you finding like stuff that's topical? Just to sort of like open your mind and say like, oh wow, this is happening. This seems to be a trend, okay.
Sure, yeah, just general, like a little bit of NPR, some CNN, just online blogs and news sites and stuff like that. Podcasts are great, you know, for keeping up with that stuff. The Daily Show with Trevor Noah is wonderful too. Bill Maher in terms of like politics, you know, like sort of mixing the news with like comedy and stuff. I find that's helpful because it gives you like a different perspective on it. And they're the ones, you know, comedians in general that kind of like tell the truth a bit more, which I think is always good and it's entertaining anyway.
Right. What do you think about someone like a Lenny Bruce who was penalized for sort of telling the truth? And now we're in a new culture where that's embraced, but at that time, you know, his shows were being, you know, I mean, how do you feel about that? That at one time it was taboo to sort of speak the truth in that sense.
Yeah.
Not that it's totally embraced now, but
right.
But more so, it's okay to sort of have a snarky take on the truth.
Yeah.
Whereas back in the day, it was far too offensive.
Sure. I think it's good that those sort of barriers have broken down a bit. I think that people definitely appreciate and I think they need the truth because there's a lot of misinformation and people are being fed things, you know, inside their own bubble that they believe to be true. And I think that's, you know, something that's sort of dividing us right now. So it's always good to sort of see what other people are talking about or where they're getting their news, for example. But yeah, I think that we're more to a place where we can be more honest, but there's still certain things that, you know, as you mentioned, like it's not fully embraced right now. I think maybe we might be backtracking a little bit into, you know, you can't say certain things, otherwise the Twitter mob is going to get you and then you're screwed. Yeah. Which, you know, as an artist is an interesting thing to deal with. Not that I've had to deal with it, but for the people that have, I can imagine how trying that is. But yeah, it's sort of a tough line to walk nowadays.
Yeah, and it's tough too because you click on one story and now that reality is continually fed back because that algorithm thinks, oh, this is what you want to see. Okay, right. This is what's in Karen's feed. This is what's in Adam's feed. So we're going to feed him more of that. We're going to feed her more of that. So you're only fed back more of your own beliefs.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting because it could be a distorted reality on my part and I could be clicking on things that the rest of the world doesn't see it that way. But yeah, you're right about the mob coming after you.